Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. So I just wanted to make a quick video on how I make my artisan loaf bread. I did have a few requests for it. So basically there's two different ways that you could do this bread. You could do it as a make it and forget it. So you make your dough, let it sit for a minimum of 6 hours, and then you come back, shape it, bake it, and then you have your bread. Or there's a second way that you can do it, which is what I do, and it involves stretch and folds. Now, if you've ever made an artisan loaf or a sourdough loaf of bread, then you're familiar with the term stretch and folds, and you're literally taking your dough, stretching it, and folding it over itself. And the reason why you do that is because one, it incorporates air into the dough, two, it develops the gluten, and three, it helps the bread cook more evenly. And it also adds shape to the dough as well. So when you don't do the stretch and folds, you're going to notice that the loaf of bread that you make is going to be a lot flatter than if you were to make it with the stretch and folds. It gives it a little more height. But at the end of the day, it's going to taste pretty much the same. So the basis for the ingredients are 3 cups of flour. You can use bread flour or 00 flour. I use all-purpose flour. That's just the flour that I have in my house. So I use the King Arthur organic all-purpose flour. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Everyone measures out their bread, or not their bread, their flour differently. So whatever your method is, whether you want to use the scale or if you do the scoop and brush. But yeah, so we're going to do 3 cups of flour in here to start with. You're going to need a little more later on for dusting, and then you're going to need 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt, just depending on what your preference for the salt is. So we're going to go ahead and add that in here as well. So my mic died. I didn't realize it till I was looking back. I'm sure you guys might be able to tell in the next clip where the flashing red light is on my microphone. But yeah, so my mic died. Anyway, what I was saying here, in addition to the 3 cups of water and the 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt, you also want to add 2 teaspoons of yeast, and then you're adding 1.25 cups of lukewarm water. You can use distilled water, tap water, filtered water, whatever water your heart desires. Just make sure it's not too hot, because as you guys know, when you're working with yeast, if it's too hot, it can kill your yeast. And if it's cold, your yeast is not going to rise. So that's basically what I was trying to explain here. And the consistency of the dough, you want it to be sticky but not wet. And as you can see, I'm adding a little bit more water because it wasn't all together. But what I mean by sticky but not wet is that, as you can see, it's sticking to my fingers. However, you still want it to be able to hold its own. So I'm going to do it at some point, but I lift up the dough out of the bowl and you'll be able to see that it still holds its shape. Like, it can stay in the shape of a ball, but it's sticking to my fingers. And if it was too wet, it wouldn't be able to stay in that ball shape. It would just kind of like run down the side of my fingers, if that makes sense. As you can see, it's holding its shape. So that's like the perfect consistency that you want for the bread. I'm sorry if that doesn't make sense, but that's the best way that I can think of how to explain that part happening. And now I'm just going to cover this, and it's going to go into its first series of rising. Basically, this is going to be like a 4-hour process, and every 30 minutes you're doing stretch and folds for the bread. And that's what it looks like before it rises the first time. And then this is the very first stretch and folds. As you can see, I have like a little cup of water there, and just stick my hands in there, just get them a little wet. And you're literally just pulling the bread up and stretching it over itself. Then you want to do a quarter turn and do it again. And basically you're doing 4 folds every single time you do a stretch and fold. So this is going to be the first one, and you'll see by the time we get to the last one how much the gluten has developed, because it gets a lot more stretchy, which is a lot more fun. This is the second stretch and fold. You can already see that it's grown a lot, and it's a lot smoother than the first. If you remember the first shot that I showed you guys before we started any, it's a lot smoother now than it was before. So yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and get those stretching folds in there. And like I said, you do 4 folds each time you do it. And now we're going to be going into the third stretch and fold. And I don't know about you guys, but that bread is starting to look really pretty, if you ask me. So again, we're going in with just our stretch and folds, and you can see how much the dough is rising, and how much more pliable it is now than it was the first time. Okay, so while I'm waiting for the last 30-minute proof of my dough, I am preheating the oven. And to bake this loaf, I do it in a Dutch oven. However, you don't need to have a Dutch oven. You can do it in a soup pot that's able to go in the oven. You can do it on a pizza stone with like a dish covering it as well. You don't necessarily need a Dutch oven. I just like doing it in a Dutch oven, and I know a lot of people who do like doing it in a Dutch oven. It's just the best in my humble opinion. So yeah, so you have your oven's preheating to 450, and you're going to put your Dutch oven in there while your oven is preheating, so it can also heat up at the same time that your oven is heating up. So that guy is in there heating up as well, and then when the time comes, I'm just going to take it out, dust it with flour, plop the dough in there, and then we're going to bake it. Okay, so I have my oven's preheated. I just took my Dutch oven out. This is what the bread looks like afterwards. As you can see, it's a lot bigger now than it was at the beginning. If it hasn't doubled in size yet, feel free to leave it for another hour or so. It's pretty warm out today, so I'm not really worried about that. So we're just gonna take some flour, spray that in there. Not spray. Words are hard at this time of day. Okay, and then I'm gonna do a few more folds just to really get it in a bowl. Okay. Oh, that took a while. Plop that in there right in the middle. So as you can see, my Dutch oven's pretty big compared to my dough, so it's gonna spread sideways and not gonna get as high as it would as if I had it in a smaller pot, but that doesn't bother me. This part's optional, but I like to just cut a little X in there like that. And then we're gonna put the lid on, cover it, and bake. Forgot to mention the entire baking time. It's 450 for 30 minutes with the lid on. After that, take the lid off, drop the oven down to 400 and bake it for another 10 minutes. I had to come out here to my sunroom because I'm losing daylight hours, but I just pulled the bread out of the oven, and here she is. Now you can let this cool completely before you cut into it. However, if you're impatient like I am, we just cut into this after a few minutes and gobble it up, because in my humble opinion, there's nothing better than fresh homemade bread. But yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. If I didn't explain something thoroughly, if you just have additional questions, let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.